Let's get on to our next guest, Labor MP Ed Husic here in the studio with me. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
New start, a bit of talk today with the coalition now urging some in the coalition urging a rethink. So Labor is now formally saying there should be an increase. Why not put a dollar amount on it?
Because I think you need to work through those issues and you can't just pluck a figure out of the air. There are some people like ACOS that have put forward figures. We think you need to talk with people in the know, look at how it interacts with other parts of the system. For example, the employment services system, so that people aren't stuck on New Start and get into a job as quickly as they can, and work out the costs. So I think it's sensible to work your way through it. But I mean, I saw that Michael McCormack response today saying people need to move. Most National Party seats have some of the highest rates of unemployment in the country that they represent. They don't do much to lower unemployment in their areas, and they want people to go from one area of high unemployment to another without seeing any sort of jobs plan. I mean, it's just it's just ridiculous that you have a Deputy Prime Minister advocate that. It'd be nice if they'd actually put some data and thinking before opening their mouths.
On the putting a figure on it and the actions you spoke about, presumably they are doable in opposition, so you'll come up with a figure and not go to another election with just a policy to review? We're
saying to the government, there are a lot of, and it is good to see that there are some within the government who are saying that the government itself needs to get serious about this. And I think we'd be prepared to work with government on this, but they've got to be prepared to actually agree to the notion that New Start is too low as it is, that it needs to be adjusted, and that we can work together to actually determine what the next rate is. So you have to work together.
You can't. This is not work you can do in opposition. I mean, you can talk to people on the ground. That's for sure. You can come up with a figure, can't you?
Tom, we could come up with the figure on our own, no sweat, through the course of that type of consultation process I mentioned earlier. But we want to be able to see it actually occur, and the way that it can happen is if the government's prepared to do it. They've got people on their side that have thought about this and clearly are now of the view something has to happen.
So do you think Labor, though, should come up with a figure? We've heard the Prime Minister's response on this, that it's not being looked at. Should Labor, therefore, come up with a figure? Then you've got a concrete policy, you can say it's affordable, make the change.
We want to be able, as I said, work through all that, and we are calling on the government to heed the widespread across business, community groups and even within their own ranks, saying this needs to change, needs to move, and I think we're signalling our preparedness to work constructively on that.
Julie Bishop and Christopher Pyne, there's going to be this inquiry into them accepting jobs and whether or not there's a contravention in the ministerial code. What's the actual accusation here or question Labor is asking specifically about what either of them have done?
Well, I think a lot of people have looked at how quickly former ministers have secured jobs with people that have actually they've worked with when they were ministers, and there's a degree of closeness that I think the ministerial standards have sought to deal with by saying you need to have a period of time not working with people that you may have had a link with or may benefit from your inside knowledge that you've acquired as a government minister, and it's just not a good look. And so I think if you see the crossbench in particular aren't satisfied with what they've seen out of government, and I think that it is in the interest of transparency and openness that we get to the bottom of this.
Well, what the code actually talks about, though, is someone not being able to lobby government members within that 18-month period and also use information they've gained through being a minister. So it's not taking a job, full stop. Are you saying the code should go further?
No, I think what I'm saying is that people are raising their eyebrows that two senior ministers have secured contracts as a result of their time as a minister and the belief that the value of that information that they possess can generate commercial benefit down the track. I think that the code is designed to send a signal to the public that there will be
effective?
I think, if I can just finish my point, the code has been designed to send a clear signal to the public that people shouldn't benefit in that way, and it's clear that it's run up against what people believe the code should stand for. Well, so if, as a result of the inquiry, it makes any recommendations to change, I'm not going to come up with changes here on your program as much as you would like me to.
Martin Parkinson's looked at this and how the code works, and all he can do is ask them, are you going to lobby? No. Are you going to use the information? No. Unless you can disprove that, they get the job. I mean, isn't the code the issue here?
As I was going to make the point a few moments ago, if the inquiry that's being set up recommends changes, then I think the government should seriously consider those. And I think there's a general, if you ask most people in the street, do they think this is a situation that seems to be okay? Most people will go, well, how is it that you get your time as a minister? They didn't get this job just because of their scintillating personalities, or that Christopher Pyne can tell a good joke over a G&T. I mean, they have got contacts, inside information. They've obviously got something of value, and that's why they've been appointed to their roles.
Would that apply equally to Martin Ferguson?
Oh boy, he's been out of the game for quite some time.
Yeah, but he made the same transition. And
well,
we can't.
Look, I don't care which side. I don't care what side of politics it is. I think people have an expectation about separation, and okay. Again, I think if the inquiry comes down with some views, let's see what they say, and be interesting to see how the government responds.
A lot of talk about Labor's tactics so far in opposition. You've got, for example, a pushback on various policies before eventually supporting them in the Parliament. What have you made of the transition under Anthony Albanese?
Well, I think, it's a work in progress insofar as, obviously you've got new leaders, new leadership teams, new personnel coming in, people wanting to take a fresh look at the way things are done. Opposition has absolutely very little going for it, and I think the trip would be made a lot easier. I think if some people would share the benefit of their thoughts behind closed doors rather than rushing to do an anonymous leak. I saw some particularly whiny loser talk on the weekend from some people, suggesting that we should just be waving things through. I think we do not need to have a fight on every single thing, but I do think that we should stand our ground on some issues and be prepared to argue the case. We took out tickets to become Labor Party members, not to become rubber stamps for a Liberal Party or a coalition that has no agenda, and all it's doing right now is seeking to pick fights themselves to mask the reality that they don't know what they're going to do next. So I think we should be prepared to stand our ground on some things. And some of the behaviour of the government, they're saying, oh, well, we've got to have a vote right now on tax relief for tax relief that gets delivered down the track. We've got to have a vote now on drought relief that doesn't happen for another year. We've got to have a vote on national security laws that were brought in by other governments 4 years earlier. So I think I think we should be taking up the fight to the coalition, and I'd want to be able to see us burn out some defeatism that seems to exist around the place. Just got to get on with the job.
Is there a particular issue you'd like to have seen Labor stand up more on, or be more defiant on?
Well, I think we've normally sort of been a lot more reticent and reluctant to take on the coalition on issues like national security. This is a government that can't be trusted on national security. They welch on deals. They are clearly not upfront about some of the arrangements that they've set in place. They've taken their sweet time to bring in laws that other countries brought in ages ago, like the TEO, the UK brought in 2015. We're going to be having some other pieces of legislation. Sunsetting clause is supposed to be given effect to some elements of national security laws that the government couldn't even be bothered to actually update in line with what the security agencies wanted.
So should you make that?
We should be prepared to
take those changes that were recommended by the Intelligence and Security Committee?
We should be prepared to take on a government that cannot be trusted on national security and plays politics ahead of making sure that the country is safe, and we should be prepared to step forward on that. I think that we should be prepared. We should not be simply waving stuff through. We should not be just rolling over on things, because the ultimate consequence of that is we become complicit in a government that has no legitimate agenda, and we want to be able to demonstrate in 3 years' time this is a bad government that should be voted out.
Ed Husic, always appreciate your time.